Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 3 for this news report today for Monday, May 20th, 2013. I'm Darko. Alright, well, if you noticed, hopefully you noticed at the end of the last videos I was talking about Zionists and Jews and basically how they entrench themselves into society. Just happened to be, as I was about to pursue that topic, the last final 2 minutes, that my computer crashed and was attacked. Pretty heavy. It seems to get worse and worse every time the attack comes. Luckily I was able to do some things and be able to not have to reinstall my operating system tonight, which would really have sucked. But I expect more attacks, and I don't know how it's going to be. But for anyone that says that you're anti-Semite or you need to adopt a certain religion, just based off when I talk about certain things such as that and I really hit home and I get attacked, that just verifies to me what I'm saying is correct and accurate. So I don't need anybody to tell me what I need to think. So we're finished off with that world growing less tolerant of Muslims, and like I said, really I'd like to see a report on basically the world growing less tolerant of whites, of nationalists, of Christians. So Church of Scotland report challenging Jews' divine right to Palestinian homeland unchanged. We're talking about false Jews. They're not the Jews in the Bible, and that is not their promised land. So now we get to this. Now I can continue. Thank you. Rare dialect dying in U.S. Texas German. Last speakers in their 60s as professor tries to preserve it. Another unique American dialect is fading into obscurity, and it's a safe bet that most never knew existed in the first place. Texas German. So says here that he's found no two speakers that speak roughly alike, and after recording 800 hours of interviews with the descendants of Germans who moved to Texas 5 or 6 generations ago. So he said here the problem is that the dialect is no longer being passed down from generation to generation. The youngest speakers are now generally in their mid-60s, which explains why Boas is so busy making recordings. And this is, of course, you have multiculturalism, of course, but you have a lot of mobilization of people. Before, people didn't move around as much. They didn't travel around to the other part of the country for a weekend. And generally, they didn't really leave their areas, but they were very tight-knit, and they took care of each other, whereas now you have next-door neighbors who can give a flying fuck about anybody else but themselves. I love that quote by Tom Cruise in the movie Collateral, where he's talking about how this old man that died on the train, and he said his corpse was taking a trip around L.A. All night for hours on end. Nobody said anything. Nobody even noticed. One of the things you have to remember, most people don't know this, is back in World War II, that the majority of the population was actually of German ancestry. So it was kind of funny that they got the Americans to go to war against Germany when most of the people were German. But still to this day, it says here the total of the percentage of a population of ethnicity breaks down to German 15%. So racism is no excuse. It's talking about tribalism is no excuse. Obama tells black graduates, encourages Morehouse grads to overcome inequality and give back to the community. He delivered a commencement speech at a historically black all-male college today, encouraging graduates to use their education to help others in the communities, act as role models to other young black men, and to achieve success in spite of racism rather than using it as an excuse for failure. Just growing up, sometimes I wrote off my failings. So just another example. We're all trying to keep a black man down. Well, I wonder if he told his office or his audience that he was actually brought up by mostly white people. He's half white himself, and the people that groomed him to the presidency were white. Many of them were leftists, or the weathermen. They were left-wing terrorists. So buy that crock. And it's just like women, females getting out of the house and stuff like that. It's about creating a tax force. It's about reducing wages in the labor force by flooding the market with more people. A global competition, people competing with each other, companies or countries competing with each other. So he tries to tell them, it's not because, we got no time for excuses, not because of the bitter legacies of slavery and segregation have vanished entirely. They haven't. But he goes on here and he says that in today's hyper-connected, hyper-competitive world, which is completely engineered, wasn't by grassroots consent, with 1 billion young people from China, India, and Brazil entering the global workforce alongside you, nobody's going to give you anything you haven't earned. So see, you're not competing. You're not just getting what you need. You're competing with other states. You're competing with other countries. So just like females who are going to be champions for corporatism. So will the blacks and minorities, right? So in other words, if you don't want to sell out your soul and you don't want to get indoctrinated into this system like he was, you're just going to basically be spending your time in the ghettos where there's no economy, no future really, and but don't make any excuses about it. How Columbia's illegal white-only scholarship disappeared. We already covered this before. But they were basically saying how bad it was that they actually had a policy that included shall only be awarded a scholarship to the persons of the Caucasian race. So it's kind of like college clubs, college campus, university clubs. You can have all black ones, all Asians, all Muslims, but you can't have an all white one. Well, I think some actually do. But if you do, and people find out about it, or you try doing anything about it to promote it, you'll be considered, it'll be called a right-wing extremist racist group. So it's all one way. Suburban poverty on the rise in the United States. The face of American poverty is now in the suburban one, according. So it says here more than twice the rate of urban areas. So it soared 64% from 2000 to 2010, the number of people living in poverty. And so the results are basically including the housing bust. That's the wealth consolidation operation that I called it 2008. Urban gentrification, and the loss of manufacturing jobs, i.e. globalization. So poverty, suburbs, who usually lives in the suburbs? Well, generally it's been mostly white middle-class people. More live in diverse U.S. suburbs than white ones. For the first time, more Americans are living in a racially, ethnically diverse suburbs than the predominantly white ones, according to a study released. Those mixed communities are also growing faster than those mostly white counterparts in the 50 largest U.S. metropolitan areas. 28% of people in major metro areas live in mostly white suburbs, a decrease from 35% of Americans who lived in such places in 2000. So, retirement harmful to health, says a study. Retirement has a detrimental impact on mental and physical health, says a new study. So the think tank, right? Oh, a nice think tank says that retirement results in a drastic decline in health in the medium and long term. So it'd be, there's probably people that retire and are still active. They still do things, whether they're active in their community, their church, not philanthropy, but charitable work and stuff. They take on maybe a new vocation, whether it's basket weaving or a small business. They can still do things. But no, what they're talking about is they want them to still be tax slaves. They still want them to be doing the 9 to 5, working for the man, producing something, and they get about 10% of that, all that effort that they put into producing something, they get about 10% of the value of it back. It's a real good scam. But we're talking about how good it is to retire. See, they're already planning to raise the pension age, so it's because they can't afford it too. And I know that these open immigration policies are also flooding the system. It's not meant to work, but that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to kill the old system and bring in the new. So Generation X on track to be the worse off than boomers in retirement. So boomers lost a significant chunk of the retirement nest in the recession, but it was a number of Generation Xers who were really hit the hardest, according to the report. Rate of suicide jumps among baby boomers. Remember, we covered this recently on the third tough economy access. So it says here the rate of suicide rose overall among those following groups of people ages 35 to 64, with the highest increase among whites. More foreclosures and the suicides during the Great Depression. So San Francisco Chronicle notes basically here foreclosure rates of the last 2000s, of the 2000 era, are often compared with those of the Great Depression, which took place through the first half of 1930s. Okay, wrapping that up with this. A celebrity worship, a sign American dream is dying. So they think our celebrity culture is exacerbating the inequality. It goes on here and it says here that celebrity, he argues, functions as a new household gods for a population losing faith, and they thrive especially when inequality is soaring and faith in institutions is falling. Strong institutions hold society together, ensuring we all play by the same rules, but today's celebrities are all entrepreneur heroes who either buy institutions or disrupt them. So we're talking about the Google burgers, right? The old school Bilderbergs, and then you have the new order, or the new guards, because they're all getting old, right? Everybody always thinks of old white men. The new, of course, is that it doesn't really matter whether you're white or not. You could be part of the club. So if you are the institution, you don't need to play by the rules. Mark Zuckerberg's Harvard woes are part of his origin myth. I think the whole thing about him with Facebook is a myth too. But either way, you know, like you got Bill Gates with Microsoft. You know, it's like these companies I think are completely government front companies. As are Jay-Z, crack dealer days. He's over, and he's always throwing around Illuminati signs and Rockefeller records, and he loves it, being part of the super class, or the uber class. These stories and the apparent diversity of the super class dangles before us the myth that in America anything is possible, even as the American dream quietly dies, a victim of the calcification of a class system that is nearly hereditary. It says we've gone back to the Gatsby's time, or something far more perverse. Rioters in Sweden protest alleged brutality and racism after police shoot elderly man. So rioters took to the streets of Stockholm neighborhood on Sunday, torching cars and throwing stones at police. Officers reportedly called residents monkeys and other derogatory terms as they protested against a recent police shooting. Most of them were mostly, young men. Between 60 and 100 people took part of the riots in the Stockholm district of Husby. So, I mean, the people in the comment board know what's going on. A glimpse into the future for all of Europe unless the multicultural sham stops immediately. Even Europhiles starting to turn against the EU project. So, it says here, when College of Europe graduates, traditionally the most loyal of all Europhiles, start to turn against Brussels, you know the project is coming off the rails. So, no one's really buying into it anymore. Greek FarRight MP expelled from debate for insult. Someone said in the comment board that he actually wasn't expelled, he walked out. It says here, Greece's parliament has expelled a neo-Nazi lawmaker from a debate after he mocked the country's opposition leader. So, deputy affiliated with the far-right Golden Dawn Party was forced out of the chamber on Friday after ridiculing Alexis Tsipras, the leader of the left-wing Syriza party. Recently, one of the Golden Dawn legislators attempted to punch Athens' mayor after municipal authorities banned Golden Dawn members from distributing free food only to Greeks in one of the capital's main squares. So they've gained support from a rise in social tensions due to the country's financial crisis, as well as austerity policies, and of course, I think they may even mention it, immigration policies. British Prime Minister faces more dissent over gay marriage bill. So British Prime Minister Cameron faces further dissent within the ranks of his Conservative Party as a bill to legalize gay marriage returns to Parliament. So it says here, large sections of his own party are fiercely opposed to the idea. Illinois gay marriage bill support slows. It says the bill to allow same-sex couples to marry in Illinois needs 60 votes to pass the Illinois House. Its sponsor says his roll call of supporters has reached the high 50s. It says we are now very close. When it comes to the board, it will pass. But after many African-American churches in Chicago's Catholic Archdiocese led by Cardinal Francis George stepped up their anti-gay marriage campaigns, House members representing predominantly black districts have publicly denounced the bill. There's also opposition among more conservative downstate Democrats. So, it says, one person said here, it's all about allowing people of same-sex relationships the same right that I have with my wife. Well, it's defining marriage as procreation, so if people don't want to have their taxpayers, their tax dollars going towards you, because it's all about taxes. I mean, that's what you got to cut through the shit. It's about taxes, so. Sore losers can't accept that France legalized gay marriage. So we're talking about engineering consent, right? It's funny that they said that the ruling on same-sex marriage did not run contrary to any constitutional principles and did not violate basic rights or liberties of national sovereignty, right? Like they don't do that already. What's funny is that they'll admit that opposers have shown up in massive numbers to protest, despite polls showing the majority of France supports it, and they passed the bill. So it just goes to show you that they do something, and then they engineer consent by putting out articles like this. UK man has prostate removed after test revealed Jolie gene flaw. You'll snitch off your testes while you're at it too there, bud. Now hot for men makeup grooming products raked in $5 billion last year. So this is kind of like the old era, the British and that, where the guys wore makeup and they wore wigs. So it was just already back then they were already trying to feminize men. So, and this is another part of blowback. It says man arrested in hate killing was laughing. So I guess he shot somebody in the head. It was a gay couple. Was laughing on the ground. Not condoning his action. But you got to remember, these are Hispanics. They're traditionally against this. Same with blacks. Same with Jews. But Jews like to use this to split us up. Thank you.